Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well today. So, what we're going to be doing today is starting the peer review process for the first paper, and we're also going to do a lesson today. So, as always, I'm going to be opening up our schedule. And we are actually on week 4 of the course. Today is Tuesday, September 15th. So we'll talk about what we'll be doing today and also this week. So today for Tuesday, September 15th, we're going to be working on drafting essay number 1 in class. And the other thing that you should be working on is reading chapter 32 and working on the reading response number 3 and hopefully have that in by sometime today. And we're also going to be working on drafting and revising. And then on Thursday, we're going to be doing peer review. And I'll talk about what peer review is. I'll do a video that day, and we'll do the process of posting everyone's drafts to the discussion board that I actually just put up. But for today, let's just focus on what we're doing for today. And I will be breaking up people into groups of 2 for everyone that does post a draft. I'm asking everyone to please post a draft or pre-writing, whatever they might have, by Thursday at noon. So if you could please do that for me, it would make breaking up people into groups much easier just to see where everyone is sort of at. And we'll do an in-class peer review workshop, and we'll also talk about logos, ethos, and pathos a little bit more in terms of the paper. So that's what we're doing for today. So before I go further, let's just talk about what I would like everyone to do in terms of that. And if you're still catching up, please be sure to do reading response 1, 2, and 3. And for everyone that did turn in a diagnostic essay, I do want to remind everyone that did share a link with me to be able to, if you could please enable permissions for me to comment on your paper in terms of the diagnostic essay, and I'll talk about how to do that too. But like I said, I would catch up and do the reading responses first if you have not already, and I would also do the diagnostic essay if you have not already. So the most important thing that I would like everyone to do for Thursday is for everyone to please post your draft of the DCA using a Google document, and please ensure that permissions are enabled to comment and view your document. Further help on how to use Google Docs can be found under the Lessons tab on Blackboard. I did do a mini lesson on how to use Google Docs, so if you need to rewatch that video, please feel free. And like I said, just post whatever you might have. I understand it might not be a complete draft, that's okay. That's the whole point of peer review, is that I will be breaking up everyone that does post a draft into groups of 2, and you'll exchange papers with someone else and comment on each other's papers. And it's important as well to do peer review in terms of composition, because we do tend to look at the writing process, like I was saying in other videos. And part of the writing process is peer review. And when we sit down and grade portfolios, we sort of ask ourselves, English professors ask themselves, especially at JCC, do we see proof of peer review present within their papers? So that's why it's important to do peer review. It's not only a important tool to sort of learn in terms of writing courses, but we do sit down and look at that in terms of when we sit down and go to grade the portfolios at the end of the semester. Just in case you're curious about that, we do look for that. So I did post a couple of images of how to share a Google Doc. So what you want to do is click that blue share button. And then when you go to edit your permissions, I would like everyone to make sure that anyone with the link, so all you do is hit that arrow and hit anyone with the link can comment. And then what you're going to do is go to this little arrow here and click on commenter, because that way your peers and I will be able to comment on your papers. And Google Docs is a really nice way to keep track of that. And if you have not already, I would definitely recommend also keeping your drafts for your papers separate, also separate from your final drafts in terms of Google Docs, because you will be posting your draft and the final version of the first paper on your Google website. And if you have not created a Google website, I also have a lesson on that, help with Google Sites, and also instructions on how to create a Google website. And I also have an additional lesson. And I also have instructions here on how to create a Google document. So if you need to revisit those, feel free. And I also have previous lessons here. If you need to review those, feel free. But today we're going to be doing lesson 5, drafting the DCA. So let's talk a little bit about that today. Okay, so what we're going to be doing in terms of in-class drafting today is talking about the focused free-write. We'll talk about the rhetorical situation of the DCA and exploring Essay 1 concepts such as the DCA claim, reasons, and evidence, and also the format and structure. So the focused free-write is another pre-writing method that we talked about last week from our second discussion board. So you can free write about a person, place, or thing that stands out to you from your chosen discourse community. So here's the focus of the paper. A discourse community is a group of people who share knowledge of a particular topic, similar backgrounds and experiences, values, and common ways of communicating. By now you should have chosen a community with which to work with. So here's the rhetorical situation. You want to write an essay to me and your classmate about a time when you successfully joined or attempted to join a discourse community. Show us how you learned to make ethos appeals, establishing and drawing on your credibility, logos appeals, drawing on factual knowledge and ways of reasoning, and pathos appeals, drawing on the values and emotions of other members that were specific to the community. Convince us of your claim about your membership. So the narrative support will come from you, and the claims and reasons are provided to you for this essay via the assignment. So what you want to do to complete this paper is use the assignment sheet along with the slides, lectures, book, and the notes to complete the essay. So your claim and thesis statement. Your audience for this essay will want to know the main point of your paper fairly quickly, so after deciding what discourse community you want to write about, come up with a claim about how successful you were in joining the community. A claim is a statement that asserts a belief or a position. In an argument, a claim needs to be stated in a thesis or clearly implied and requires support by reasons and evidence. So your claim should be some version of I am a legitimate accepted member of this discourse community because. And of course, the reasons why you are a legitimate member. So here's an example. I am an accepted member of the Jamestown Lucille Ball fan club because I have mastered the logos, the pathos, and the ethos. And for each reason will be a separate body paragraph within your paper. So here's an example of how I have mastered the logos. So the Lucy fan club in Jamestown has very specific ways of communicating. It took a few years, but I was eventually able to master the expansive vocabulary that every member must know. and here's the evidence. Even after you've made a claim and supported it with reasons, your audience still won't be satisfied. Readers will expect you to provide evidence that you really did master ethos, logos, and pathos appeals specific to your discourse community. So where will you find evidence for this paper? It won't be in the library or on the internet because it will come from you. So you want to reflect deeply on your own experiences. Come up with specific examples and significant antidotes that will prove to your audience that indeed you learned to make successful ethos, logos, and pathos appeals to other members of the community. You can also read the Norton Field Guide, Chapter 40, for help on writing description, and Chapter 10 also gives help on how to write a narrative. So this is your story and your narrative. We will preview the evidence needed for each of the 3 reasons today. Your narrative should provide adequate supporting detail for each reason. So pathos in a discourse community is for emotional appeal. However, pathos is also much more than simple emotions. You will develop skills in defining and recognizing pathos to evaluate the values and norms of certain groups, which will eventually aid you in creating discourse, because discourse is, of course, audience-driven, and discourse should also be audience-responsive. So when communities have values, norms, and traditions that they share, they are discursive. When communities share these things, they exhibit pathetic connection or pathos appeal. So values. What do people and the community care about? And the norms. What are the normal, unspoken rules within the community? And in terms of tradition, are there events, repetitions in the community? What value do traditions hold? So your responses to these questions establish one reason that supports your claim. Your narrative about how you came to know and recognize these values, norms, and traditions in turn supports this reason. So discourse communities and logos. So there are terms, jargon, text, signs, and symbols that might be associated with certain groups. Now, in terms of ethos in a discourse community, to be a discursive community, there must be the presence of experts. So in other words, the community defines expert in a certain way. What makes people experts in your community? Who has the highest ethos? Are you considered an expert? How do you know you are an expert? So to be an expert, you must be labeled or recognized as an expert by other experts in the field. So sometimes that might include awards, titles, honors, maybe medals, degrees, certificates, or major accomplishments. And sometimes you can't even enter a community until you possess at least one of these. So an example of that might be maybe a sports scholarship program or something like that. Even an honors program at a college is considered that because you have to have a type of honors in order to enter that discourse community. So the basic structure. So what you want to be thinking about is the intro will change depending on purpose. It will change depending on the type of essay being written. But in terms of our purposes, what you want to do in your body paragraphs is have a topic sentence and of course supporting details. And the goal of your conclusion isn't to introduce any new ideas, but to sum up everything you've written. So specifically, your conclusion should accomplish these major goals. Restate the main idea of your essay or your thesis statement. Pick and summarize the 3 subpoints of your essay. And leave the reader with an interesting final impression. So what you want to do within the intro, a good opening paragraph captures the interest of your reader and tells why your topic is important. So since this is a narrative essay that you will detail your personal struggle and work to become a legitimate member of some community. The supporting details, the evidence is yours and will come from your own experience. So a good intro for the DCA will explain to your outsider readers what your subject is, why your paper matters, and include a detailed thesis that states the claim and reasoning of your essay. So what's wrong with this following introduction sample paragraph? So in order to be accepted into a community, a person must learn the typical ways people in that community communicate and argue. In this paper, I will prove that I entered the discourse community of high school band by acquiring content knowledge, establishing my credibility, and learning to sway other members of the community. So the main problem with this introduction is that it's very general. It doesn't tell me anything about what sort of discourse community you're entering, what it takes to enter that specific community. Doesn't even tell me where it is or what school it's at or why it was important to this person. So what you want to do is explain the community in great detail and also provide significance. And this one doesn't really contain a specific thesis. So that's really the main problem here, is that the thesis statement is just not detailed enough for me to know or understand your discourse community. So this one is very nice. We have looked at this one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to focus on the thesis statement here. It took me 4 long years of intense training to get the music, sounds, steps, lingo, and group traditions down enough to be considered a legitimate member of the Richardson High School Marching Band. So this introduction is very nice because it tells me specific details about the marching band and also what it took to become a legitimate member. So what the student says within this intro is they describe why learning to play the drums was so important, how they got into playing the drums, and also why their particular drum corps within band is so important, is that it is an auxiliary support section for all the compositions we played. So this student gives really great details in terms of their intro, and that's really what I'm going to be looking for. So drafting the DCA, this chart should hopefully look familiar to you by now in terms of the ethos, the logos, and the pathos, and what you should be thinking about including within your essay and sort of answer those questions. So remember that this is an analysis, which means that you're dissecting your discourse community and looking at its component parts. You will obviously need to spend some time, probably within your intro and conclusion, discussing it as a whole, but the bulk of your argument should be spent analyzing its 3 major parts. How you order your essay will depend on the stories you tell and what seems most important to you or your audience. Anyway, that is it in terms of today's lesson. And again, what you should be working on in terms of today, if you're all caught up with everything already. So today's materials that you should be doing, once you have your DCA draft done, all you're going to do is make sure that you have it in a Google document. And then once you have it in a Google document, all you're going to do is go into here and you will post and create a new thread. And please be sure to post the link and also make sure that you do have permissions enabled. And make sure that anyone with the link can view and also comment. And if you also need a sort of reminder about the paper guidelines, you can find it under the paper guidelines tab here. And under the essay number 1 materials, and the guidelines are right here for you at any time. Reading the guidelines is sort of helpful because it does help generate content. And we should be working on the, like our draft should be hopefully more, hopefully everyone has a draft mostly done. And it does also tell like how to generate narrative content and that kind of thing. And the textbook is very helpful in terms of that as well. And the guidelines do point out specific chapters on what lessons to be drawing on from the book if you need further help with that. And like I said, we'll be doing peer review on Thursday. The last little announcement that I do want to make before wrapping up this video is that 6-week grades are due in 3 weeks, or actually two, technically two. And what will be included in terms of our 6-week grades for this comp online course, I'll be looking at discussion boards, and also I think we'll also have the final version of the paper of the draft due before 6-week grades. So that will probably also be included. And, participation and attendance is, of course, counted through if you've been completing online activities, if you've been keeping up with the material, and if you've been doing everything right along. And the last little thing that I do want to point out is if you have not created a Google site already, please be sure to do so. And I will be working on providing feedback on people's diagnostic papers probably this weekend. I have to finish that up in terms of there's a few diagnostic essays that I have to comment on. So please be sure to check your email also, because you might be one of the students that I was not able to comment on your paper, maybe because permissions just weren't enabled. So be sure to check your email as well. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all on Thursday. Bye, everybody.